Mindfulness Toolkit was actually part of a proof of concept for a mental health campaign. So essentially, what we did, it's been had clinical oversight and been conducted with clinical oversight. So we worked with mental health professionals and psychologists throughout the country who made sure that every tool that we put in there had some sort of evidence base. And there's 10 tools. There's 10 tools in the kit, and every single one of them has some sort of evidence behind it and demonstrating that it works. And then the tougher group that we had to work with was actually the youth themselves. So we did some focus groups and some workshopping. The demographic was pretty large. We were aiming for 13 to 24, so a broad range that the campaign was focused on. And the toolkit was actually focused on primarily 13 to 16. The thing is with that broader range, right? The 13-year-olds will probably do stuff that the 16-year-olds are doing just because 16-year-olds are cool. And 16-year-olds will probably do what the 18-year-olds are doing just because 18-year-olds are cool, and so on. But a 24-year-old isn't going to do something a 13-year-old is doing. So that was the tougher crowd for sure. And with youth, with teens, a lot of time their bullshit detector is on 10, so it's super high. And we're competing against a lot of flashy things that grab their attention. If they sense any whiff of something that's inauthentic, I don't know if you remember there's an episode of 30 Rock where Steve Buscemi's character is a detective and he goes undercover in a high school, but it's like Steve Buscemi, right? And so he's got a skateboard.
He's one of my favorites. Always gives you a good laugh.
Right. Yeah. He's like, oh, my nickname was the chameleon. And they're like, oh, for your ability to blend. And he's like, no, for my dewy eyes and slim waist. But he like walks into this high school and he's got like a skateboard over his shoulder and he looks like Bart Simpson or something. And he's like, hey kids, what's going on? So that's what you don't want in any situation whatsoever. So that's what the importance of like the focus groups and the workshopping was, to make sure that we had somewhat of an authentic voice. We actually did some of these tools or some of these exercises with the kids in these groups to just make sure that they tracked. I wanted to share with you one of I think this speaks volumes, this little anecdote. One of the focus groups we jumped in, we were workshopping, sometimes it's difficult, with any kind of workshop to get people to speak and engage, especially when it's youth, because, people are, you work with kids all the time, Vince, so you know what I'm talking about. People are hesitant. They don't necessarily want to share their experiences and stuff. But this kid, came forward. We were doing A/B testing. We had two voices kind of side by side, two narrations. We held them up, and this kid came forward, and he was kind of like just sort of punching his fist into his hand. And I thought, okay, he's just working off some nervous energy or whatever. Incorrect assumption. He's basically what this kid did was he's like, if anybody ever talked to me the way this chump in voice A talks to me or talks to the kids, I would feel so condescended, I would bust him upside the head. So we went with B. I didn't get pummeled by a 13-year-old, but that's the point, is that they have a high bullshit detector. They're pretty guarded, and you actually have to hustle pretty hard to make sure that the voice is authentic. And I think we did a pretty good job of capturing that voice and working with the youth that we worked with, again, across the country, to make sure that it came across authentic.